If you're like me, you're always on the lookout for good, new, well-made card making tools that look great in your creative space. Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel, and in today's video, I'll be unboxing and trying out a whole bunch of new Gina K Designs tools. If you've used anything from Gina K before, you know she has high quality products that really are made with card makers in mind. So let's start out by unboxing these brand new tools, including the adorable and effective Mini Intri-Cut machine. The Intri-Cut Mini is a mini cutting and embossing machine. The platform width is a little over 3 inches and the plates are 3 inches wide. So you can leave this little machine out on your desk even if you have a smaller workspace, which is really nice for just quick die cutting and quick little embossing. And I really like the way that it looks as well. It's just so cute and adorable. There are little feet at the bottom that will keep it from skipping around on your work surface. The platform just folds open like that, but it can fold up to store on your desk as well. There are 3 plates that come with the machine. There are 2 3mm plates and 1 5mm plate. So for the die cutting sandwich, you start with the thicker plate, the 5mm plate, then you put your paper, then your die, and then you put the top thinner plate, the 3mm plate on top. And that does a perfect little die cut. Again, that is a 3 inches wide plate that can be used, and you can get replacement plates if your plates need to be replaced for any reason. So it's just an adorable machine, but it works like a dream. Next up, we have the Gina K Designs Guillotine Paper Trimmer. This is such a pretty paper trimmer. I love the white and teal that all of Gina K's tools have in common. This is a great little trimmer that has, again, those feet to keep it from sliding around. They've even included a hole at the top, so if you're somebody who likes to hang their tools, that's the perfect way to do that. There's a lock for the guillotine arm, it just goes right in there. This way, if you have little fingers around, then, or you're just your own fingers, you won't get cut accidentally. There's a guide that's a clear guide that you can hold onto rather than put your hand underneath the guillotine area. And I love that the measurements go a little bit beyond 6 inches because that's probably all that I would need as far as trimming for different parts of my card making. I really love this trimmer. It trims beautifully, slices perfectly, and you can see the cuts are nice and clean. Next up, we have the corner and notch punch. So this is a 2-sided punch. On one side, you stick in the corner into the punch and you press the handle and then it will round the corners. On the other side, I'll show you how to use it when you make an envelope, but on the other side, you can place the corner through all the way and it will notch out that corner. So again, the notch is a really great tool for using with creating your own envelopes, but it can also create a fun effect on your corners as well. The next tool is the Gina K Designs MultiPurpose scoring tool. So of course you can score your cards, but you can also create envelopes, and there are instructions right on the base of this tool to show you exactly how to use it. There's a scoring tool that snaps into place at the top, and you can see I'm just going to score this A2 piece of cardstock in half to create a little card because this is what I had out on my desk, so I thought I would do that so you could see. And now we'll create an envelope for a 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 inch card, and we'll need a 6 by 6 piece of paper, and then we'll be using the score or scale line of 3 inches, and I'll show you what that means in a second. But first, I'm using the paper trimmer to cut this cardstock down to 6 by 6. And once I have that, then I am lining it up against this edge here. So this edge at the top, that's the 0 mark right there. And you can see that diagonal line, that's going to be where you're going to score. So you want to move your paper up to the scale mark. So mine was 3. So I'm sliding it up until it hits the 3, and then I'll put the scoring tool in that line and score it. That's the first score line. Then you'll rotate 90 degrees and you'll do exactly the same thing. You can see that the 3 will line up on the left-hand side and your original score line on the right-hand side. But for this one, I was using the scale mark over and over again. You don't need to do that. You can just line up your score line with that diagonal score line on the left and then score through the diagonal on the right. I hope that makes sense. So basically, I'm going to continue to rotate and score until I've done it 4 times on each side. And that will create the center of the envelope, all the lines that we need to score. And now here's where the notch punch comes in really handily. First, we'll just use the corner rounder. You don't have to do this if you don't want your corners rounded, but I like the way they look. So I'm rounding all the corners first. And then once that's done, I'll flip the tool over and see these little triangles where the score lines intersect. That's where you're going to line up the notch. So the notch punch has little lines, and then you can see those little arms that kind of stick out. You want those little arms to line up with your score lines, and that will create a notch perfectly placed in between those 2 score lines. So once I have that all lined up, I'll punch my notch and I'll rotate and continue to do that, 1 on each side. This is really easy to do, and this is the easiest envelope I've ever made. So now, once that's done, I will fold all the pieces inward. And really, it doesn't matter what direction you do it in. It will all turn out the same when you're doing a square envelope like I did here. Once I have that sort of all folded up, then I'll use some double-sided tape to hold the side flaps in place, and then I'll put some double-sided tape at the bottom flap, just on the edge, on both edges of the bottom flap. I'm holding those side flaps in place, even though they have some score tape on them, to make sure everything folds up nice and tight. And that makes it look like a realistic envelope, like a real envelope that you would get at the store. And then you can reinforce that with the bone folder, or like I did there with my fingers. And look at how nice that looks. So you never have to buy an envelope again if you don't want to. I'm trimming that card down just so you can get an idea of how nicely a little card would slide into this envelope. And obviously it could be a little bit larger as well. Just wanted to give you the idea of how nice this envelope looks. Now let's combine those amazing new tools with some of the new stamps and dies from this month's release. First up, I have the Blissful Birds stamps and dies. I love this set. These birds are so whimsical and cute, and then there's a whole bunch of sentiments. So I'm stamping 2 of the birds and this little heart. There's also some flowers and things, accessories that you can add with your birds. So I have 2 birds stamped out on some Hammermill cardstock, as well as that little heart, and I'll be coloring these in with alcohol markers. So I'm gonna heat set them first. You don't technically have to heat set with Gina K Designs amalgam ink. You can just let it dry naturally, but I was in a rush and I wanted to get this done so that I could share this stamp set with you. So I heat set a little bit, and I tend to do that if I'm going to color right away. I'm using Olo markers to color in. I'm not doing anything too super fancy, but I'm blending a little bit, adding a little bit of shading here and there, and having fun with the color combination of that teal that I kept seeing in the tools, and then some orange. So instead of white, I'm using orange because it seemed like a fun fall color combination, but really just a fun combination in general. I'll use the dies to cut all those pieces out, and then I'm trimming down a piece of white cardstock to about 3 3/4 by 5 inches. Then I'll do this teal cardstock to 4 by 5 1/4, and then I have some coral reef cardstock in an A2 size. I'm rounding the corners on the white cardstock only. Now, all of those measurements, I don't really do measurements that well, so all those measurements were just to say that there's a matte underneath the white cardstock and underneath the teal cardstock, so I get to see all 3 colors. Then I'll pop up the birds and the heart. I stamped the sentiment already. It says, "Flap your wings and soar high." I had so much fun creating this little card. I'm definitely going to be stamping out and using the rest of those birds as well. Next, we have the bundled up stamps and dies. This is such a unique little stamp set. I absolutely love it. There are 2 sweaters, a hat, and some mittens, some snowflakes, and then some really pretty sentiments. So I'm cutting my cardstock down to 4¼ by 5½ so I can stamp out one of the sweaters, and I'll also stamp one of the snowflakes inside the sweater. So I'm using the plain sweater that you can decorate yourself, and I'm placing a snowflake inside of it. And I'm using embossing ink because I'll be heat embossing this with some embossing powder. So once I've stamped the snowflake, I will cover the whole design with Gina K Designs embossing powder in rose gold. This is such a unique color. I absolutely love it. And when you heat set it, you get that slight metallic hint with that rose color. So I'll use the die to cut that out, and then I'll cut a piece of cardstock. Again, I'm cutting it a little bit smaller than 4 by 5¼ and I'll round those corners once again because I've forgotten how much I love the look of rounded corners, but it's such a nice finished edge to them. I'm also stamping and heat embossing several of the snowflakes and one of the sentiments. And I'm doing this all on white cardstock because the background is going to be that bubblegum pink cardstock from Gina K, and then I'll place it all on a glittery cardstock in the background. So I have the sentiment that says Happy New Year, and I was just really happy to see a Happy New Year sentiment on this stamp set. You don't really get a lot of Happy New Year stamp sets out there. So whenever I see one, I decided I have to make a New Year's card with it because there are just so few out there. And I'm sure it's because after the holidays, people are kind of need a break and don't want to really make a Happy New Year's card right away. But if you make it now, you'll have it to give or to send out. So I have those snowflakes. Oh, and I wanted to show you how I was using the little mini Intri-Cut here. It's absolutely perfect for small dies like this, for a sentiment, for tiny little snowflakes like that. So I love having that out on the desk. I think that's a great addition to your desktop. I have the little sweater kind of at a little jaunty angle, and then I'll add the snowflakes and the Happy New Year sentiment and finish that card off with that glitter in the background. Next up, I have a stamp set from last month's release. It's called Winter Tweetings, and before I could even use it, y'all bought it up so fast. So if any of you didn't get it, it is now back in stock, and so I wanted to use it today so that you could see how cute this stamp set is. I've stamped the branch in some brown ink. I stamped the 2 of the birds, and I placed them on white cardstock so I could color them in with alcohol markers. I'm using a light brush to blend on some sea glass ink from Gina K Designs. I felt like that created almost the look of a cloudy or snowy background to the sky. And then I'll stamp with Gina K Designs amalgam black ink right onto that card panel, and it says Warm Winter Wishes. And these little birds are snuggled up in scarves and hats, and it's so easy to pop them up and just place them on those branches and makes it look like they're sitting in those branches. So this is an adorable set for lots of winter cards. I don't know about you, but I was super excited to get to share this new release with you, especially those brand new tools from Gina K Designs that, as I mentioned, are so high quality and they just look so great on your desk. But I'd love to hear what caught your eye today. Let me know in the comments below. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. In the last video, we had cars and dogs. Now we have football watchers and gamers. It's a tough go this Sunday.